Welcome to Kicking It Local, the podcast all about the football community in South Australia. I'm your host, Johnny Kecko, and today I'm joined by Adelaide Comets footballer from the National Premier League in South Australia, Jayden LoBasso. Thank you so much for joining me, Jayden.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to our chat today. You got an incredible story from when you first started growing up in Port Pirie. We want to talk about that, and also another key thing that's happened this year in your career. A big hurdle to overcome, and I think it's one of the most inspiring stories in local football at the moment. And it was this year you got diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yep.
It's an autoimmune disease. Big hurdle to overcome, and I'm looking forward to sharing that story with you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, and look forward to sharing. But wouldn't say I'm the most inspirational. There's people who've gone through much worse, but it was definitely a big hurdle for sure.
From where you were 5 months ago or so, and where you got to, some would say it would be the hardest thing to get to, and you managed to overcome it.
Yeah, it was. What other choice do you have? It's like get better or feel sorry for yourself. So, did the work and had a lot of support. So
absolutely, mate. Well, before we get into that, there's a long way before you got here because, and when I say long way, it's a little bit of a pun as well because you have to drive a long way to get here at some point as well because you grew up in Port Pirie.
Yes, that's right.
You're born and bred in Port Pirie.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in Port Pirie?
Oh, awesome. I mean, it's like you're within a 1 minute walk from your best friends, no matter where they are. If they're on the other side of town, 1 minute walk. If they're right next to you, 1 minute walk. It's a small town, lots of good people, lots of friends, big sporting culture. So absolutely loved it. It was a great place to grow up.
So it's very much a very small town, isn't it?
Yes.
What was that like as a kid growing up? I know you said your mates were so close to each other, but now that you live in the city, but looking back, what was it like to have that childhood in a country town?
It was so good for a sporting sense. Like that's all we did. We went to school, we walked home, and we played soccer on the front yard or cricket in the backyard. And we would have 5, 6, 7 people come over. We would walk straight from school, and our house was sort of the house for everything to take place. We had a big front yard that my dad looked after like it was Anfield, and we had soccer goals, and so it was awesome as a sporting sense. Like we knew no different. It was we'd go to school, we'd come home, and we'd kick the ball around for 2-3 hours, which you don't see here because there's just not the space. There's not the probably the safety as well. My parents and everyone was fine with young kids walking to school, walking home together. It wasn't a problem, and I loved it. It was awesome. And
everyone obviously knew everyone.
Yeah, we still do. Everyone says the world was started in Pirie. Like even to this day, I run into Pirie people all the time. They know my family at some stage in their lives. So it is true. Everyone does know everyone.
I'm pretty sure everyone I've spoken to that's come from Port Pirie all know the LoBasso family. Everyone I've spoken to. We have a big family, and very much involved in soccer in a lot of sense. I've got 2 brothers who play the sport as well, and we've made great friends along the way. So well, growing up in Port Pirie and you loved football, obviously there's 2 teams. Savoy or Demons. Big rivalry there with the 2 Italian clubs. Your household was a Demons.
Demons.
Demons. What was it like growing up at that club?
Absolutely magnificent. Unfortunately, I wasn't born earlier to really experience the rivalry. By the time I sort of grew up, Savoy had dropped off to the amateurs, and Demons were still in the state league. But growing up around that club, honestly, it's very, you don't really see it much. Like I've only really sort of seen similarities between Demons at Comets, and that's why I feel quite at home there. It really is a family club. Like you said, everyone knows everyone in the town, and the games feel a little bit more important when you play for them because you go to the club on a Friday night and you see all the older people who started the club, ran the club, and all the supporters, and because everyone's so tight, it makes you run that extra mile for them. knowing the work that goes on behind the scenes to run the only team outside of Adelaide to compete in Adelaide. So awesome club. Dad was heavily involved for 30 plus years, playing, committee, whatnot. So we were a big part of it, and still, even though I'm not playing there, still look for their results every week to see how they're going, and I've still got mates there, so chatting to them quite frequently.
But having your dad a part of that club as well, and your brothers, does that make it a bit more special when you finally got to play?
Yeah, for sure. I remember making my debut with my two brothers. I think I was 15 years of age. And there's a funny photo. It was just outside of Cumberland. When there was 2 leagues at that time, and I looked like I was 12 years old. But so happy. I was very small, and it was me and my 2 brothers. And then I think it was a very special moment for my dad that day as well. And unfortunately, we lost. I think we lost quite significantly, but it was something that, you know, I'll remember forever. Having the opportunity to play with my brothers is awesome. Yeah. Yeah,
and we talk about like. It's great that there's a club that's so far away from the CBD in Adelaide, but it's another avenue for the country people to go and play for a team that's playing in a pretty decent league in the State League too, and to higher quality compared to all the amateur clubs you can play for. So as a local boy there, how did it feel to have that avenue to get through? Because did you find it hard to try and break into state teams and stuff like that, or did having that club there make it a bit more realistic?
Well, if I really look back on it, if it wasn't for the work that Demons did in their juniors, giving those young players the pathway to compete in Adelaide, to get seen by regular coaches when they're not state teams or whatnot, my life would be, you know, completely different. I've experienced so much in the game, whether or not it's been with the youth team and going to Spain, and whether or not it was, you know, at Comets and playing in NPL Grand Finals. If I look back on it, if it wasn't for the work that, and my dad was instrumental in the work, but a lot of key people at the club getting those juniors up and running, and giving young country people the pathway, I wouldn't have experienced some of the best moments in my life. To be honest. Yeah, it was.
How'd you find the long trips to and from Port Pirie with the players?
Well, I guess because I remember doing them when I was 5-6 years old for my brothers. So for me at the time, it felt like it was just normal. It's only until I've moved to Adelaide where I'm like, wow, how did we do that? But you know, they were good trips. It was good for the family. We were together for the whole weekend in the car. So they're experiences that you wouldn't trade for anything. But it is a big effort and something that's not probably appreciated enough that, you know, Demons do make that trip and do it quite honestly by themselves. You know, they get a lot of support to do it, but what they're doing is pushing through for hopefully another young kid to come through the ranks and hopefully one day play A-League or whatnot. And that would be just everything for the club. We look at Emily Condon, who plays in the W League now at Adelaide United and played for the Matildas. I think she made a cap or 2 there, and it's like just amazing how a little girl from, you know, Napperby, which is just outside Port Pirie, has gone on to achieve that, and I think the club was a big part of helping her. Emily was very super talented and worked hard, but they at least gave her an opportunity to experience quality football. So yeah, it's one of the main reasons the club is there. Yeah, for sure. And
well, the road trip that you had, what was it like? Give me a little bit of insight what it's like on a LoBasso road trip to Adelaide on a weekly basis.
On a weekly basis, my dad would be. He had this USB stick. I had about 1 million songs from the 80s, so I know every 80s hit from back to front because he would play the same songs over and over again. If it was just me going up for my games, I'd try and have a sleep. If not, if it was the whole family, I'm stuck in the middle and copping a lot from my brothers. But yeah, it was good fun. Yeah.
If you made a mistake during the game, would you cop it the whole way home, or if anything happened, or if you lost, or?
I was probably like, my dad was really not like that. To be honest, he was quite supportive and didn't make me feel anyway. That's there was a certain level of performance I had to achieve, but obviously individually you set those markers for yourself. And having two brothers, when they see you make a mistake, they will bring it up. So that after a loss or a bad performance, those trips home did feel a little bit longer, that's for sure.
And you had those weekly trips with the club, but then there was a stage where you got selected for the the state team, which means extra travel because this training is based in South Australia, or in Adelaide. What was that like when you finally got selected to play state?
Yeah, so I was selected in the under-13 state team for Richie Alagich was the coach at the time, and I remember getting that email saying I had been selected, and it was almost like it was a feeling like I'd made it, even though it was under 13 state team. Like you look back and all the work you do as a kid, and it was like it's finally me, something like I'm progressing. So that was an amazing moment to receive that email, and I remember being at my family's I think I was my auntie's house at the time, and yeah, it was good. All the family was quite proud and happy, and the club was very happy, and it was a good moment. For sure.
And then once you got over the excitement of it, then you look at how much training's involved and how much driving is involved.
Yeah.
How did that feel with your parents having to commit to that?
Well, it was probably it ended up being a bigger commitment than we probably first thought. For me, I'm a kid. Like I just wanted to go play soccer and get the best training and play with the best players and see where I was at. But the real heroes were probably my mum and dad, like committing to taking me to Adelaide 3 times a week, which is a 6-hour round trip. For 2 years, it ended up being. It was quite astonishing, and we weren't the only ones to do it. Emily Condon was in the same boat, and sometimes when it worked out, we would carpool. But it was crazy. My dad was leaving work at 2:00, and I was finishing school at 2, and we were driving down to Adelaide. Mum would pack us a dinner if she didn't take me for that trip, and would be eating at home, and we'd get home late at night, 12:00 at night, and I would wake up and Dad's already gone to work because he's had to make the hours up, and I'm a bit dusty before going to school, and then trying to catch up on the schoolwork I've missed, and then you got to do it all again the next day. It was challenging, but like I said, I was willing to do it because it was like that's my be all and end all, was to be there and try and improve and learn from an ex-Adelaide United player, and Richie Alagich it was once in a lifetime opportunity for me at the time. So I was like, we do it because you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always joke about like the long drives and all that kind of stuff, but we look at our parents, and if you weren't having supporting parents like the ones you have, you probably wouldn't be able to get in the situation you're in now, would you?
No, definitely not. Like, and that's proceed to other things in life in terms of schooling and my education and studying at uni, but they've really supported my soccer interests and passions, whether or not that's allowing me to go on trips away to Spain or trips to tournaments like we had Coffs Harbour, and they would always be there. They didn't like missing out, but it's amazing the support that we've had.
Well, there's a lot of driving. It's the amount of money you probably spent on petrol. You could have potentially moved to Adelaide. Was there ever talks, because you're so heavily involved in playing the state team, and also your brothers were playing regularly? So was there ever talks of moving to Adelaide, or?
Always. We had chats. But at the time, what sort of kept us there was the club. My dad was heavily involved with the club. We were heavily involved, and we didn't sort of want to leave that. So that kept us there for a few years, probably longer than we could have been there. But like I said, my mum and dad born and raised in Pirie as well, so it was a big move for them. 50 years spent there, and having all their friends and not knowing any different. It was a big decision to finally come to, and we eventually did, and we still, realised that we could save some money on petrol, but and also keep our friends and similar lifestyle. So, no, it was all good.
And then the next step after that was Adelaide United Youth came calling. Well, how did that come about, and what was that process like to get a part of that club?
So after 2 years at the state team, I was actually let go before NTC with Carl Viet, and for many reasons, the 2 years had took its toll on me, and I probably wasn't as confident and playing as good as I once was. But I came back into the loving environment that is the Northern Demons, and continued to excel and develop there, and played first team football at a young age, like I said, and we eventually I'd advertised some trials for the under-16s team going to the Mediterranean International Cup in Spain. I went and trialled and got in, and had a decent tournament, and from that Adelaide United actually ended up coming and playing against Northern Demons in Port Pirie.
Yep.
And I was a young 15-year-old in that game, and did okay, and got asked to come and trial for the youth team that was starting back up with Mark Jones as the first team coach, and they'll bring the Resis back in. And yeah, got there, took my opportunity, had a good trial period, and received the same thing, the email saying I was in. So yeah, it all came about pretty naturally, and it was a good experience.
How'd that feel playing against Adelaide United?
Yeah, it was crazy. That was just after they had won the grand final the year after.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, like the champions were coming to Port Pirie.
Yeah.
Little old Port Pirie. So the whole town was there, like talking at least 3,000-4,000 people there, which is massive. The town's 13,000 people.
Well, how old were you back then?
I was 15, 15,
wow. So a 15-year-old playing against Adelaide United, surely that's something to edge you on to play, train harder and get to that level, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a massive learning curve. Like I remember, brushing shoulders with Karuska, Jita's up front, and I'm like, wow, I was watching these 2 months ago at Adelaide Oval win the A-League, and now they're at Burn Park, which is the soccer ground Northern Demons, and sharing the field with them was like crazy. And Amor was the coach, Barcelona legend, and it was just a surreal weekend.
You would have Galakovic there as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the best lineup there from LA United
ever? You go through 1 through 11, it was like, wow, crazy. Like Sirio, they were all there, and it was amazing. Yeah. And
now for a little town like that, those type of games are massive.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be able to then get the call up to go and play for Adelaide United Youth, how did that feel? Were you an Adelaide United fan growing up as well? Yeah,
massive Adelaide United fan. Like, we would equally travel to go watch Adelaide United games from Pirie. So we're doing a lot of travel. Massive fan. Getting that email. I think my brothers were probably more excited than me. My brother, I remember, it was actually the night of the presentation night, Northern Demons presentation night. So notoriously a big night, and very similar to the Brownlow, very, very high key. And my brother actually won best and fairest that night, and his whole speech was about me making the youth team. It was a special moment for my dad to see his son win best and fairest of his club for the second time in a row. And then also the same night I was selected in the youth team. So
that's unreal.
Yes. So
how was everyone at the club? Was all that proud?
Yeah. It was equally like Matt got a standing ovation for his season, winning best and fairest, but also they stayed clapping for me once he told the whole club a bit prematurely. I was like, let's just settle down first. We don't know if we're actually moving or whatnot yet. And he was like, nah, first thing in his speech, I want to congratulate my little brother, and everyone was like, what? And then it was a good moment.
That is awesome. What was it like when you finally moved to Adelaide United? Did you uproot and come to Adelaide, or the whole family, or just yourself?
Yeah, so at that stage my brothers were already at uni in Adelaide. And when I sat down with my mum and dad, saying this is what I want to do, I want to go, I want to do it, I want to give it a shot. They had a big chat with all of us and was like, if all three of you are going to be there, do you see yourself, coming back? And Matt and Daniel were quite happy. I didn't know at that stage. I just wanted to give this a go and whatnot. And they were like, we're not sure. And they were like, well, we might come and follow you. So they made the move pretty quick. My mum actually got there before all of us because she got a job very quickly and changed roles. So she was already there before all of us had officially moved because it was uni holidays and whatnot. And we all made the move.
Wow. And then you finally moved to Adelaide, Adelaide United. How did you find the transition from, because you're at a traditional club at Northern Demons. Adelaide United's youth is a little bit different. What was that like, adjusting to that?
A massive culture shock. Yeah, massive. Lucky I had the couple years experience in the state team, so I sort of knew what it was about and what happens. But it was a massive cultural shift because, at Northern Demons, it's, one for all for one. Everyone's together. It doesn't matter if you play well, if we lose, we all lose. Bit different when you're in the youth team with a bunch of great elite footballers who want to make it as well, with probably more individual goals rather than collective goals. And I've always been because I've grown up in that way, a team collective goals first, and it's probably shown in my playing style. I'll do whatever the team sort of needs, whether that's change of position, whether that's, I'm all about it. So it was a bit of a shock at first, but, it was still an amazing experience, made a lot of good friends, had the best coaching, and developed a lot. It was originally quite a shock,
Who were some of the coaches you were coached by during your time there?
So originally, I'd come down a little bit early and did some pre-season with Mark Jones and the youth team who were in the youth league, which was really cool for me, really good experience. And then then the reserve started up, and Simon Catanzaro was the coach, and he was amazing. You're talking about a 3-time Surge Melter winner. So knowing a little bit about him, and he would come out and play some of the drills with us, and you'd just be like, he was a good player back in his day. Like, his touch, his skills were still there. He hadn't lost them, that's for sure. What's
some of the things that you took away from him and would always carry with you through the rest of your career from that period?
With Cata and a bit with Mark Jones was just, all the fundamentals, like, be great at them. You always get taught about checking your shoulders and whatnot at a young level in the state teams and whatnot, but really focusing on them and seeing the impact that has on the rest of your game, whether or not that's being leveled outside your opponent so you can take a touch pass, even break a line, stuff like that. Drilling those things into you and getting consistent with them completely changes your game, and it was a massive learning experience.
He's a great guy, Simon Catanzaro. So he would have been someone great to... It's actually funny, when I was in Sydney on a little trip, I was out chatting to some random people, and we got talking about local soccer, and one guy goes, I used to play soccer. And I'm like, who for? I thought NPL. Ended up playing with Simon Catanzaro in the NSL.
Really? There you go.
They can't go anywhere without someone knowing Simon Catanzaro.
That's the same. And we also had... So then Simon sort of moved on, and Paul Pezos came in.
Another one. Great coach.
And you've seen what he's done with Adelaide City. He's technically one of the most brilliant coaches in Australia, to be honest. And then he stepped up into the youth team, and the Resi's coach became Adrian Stenter, who's now the women's coach. And so I've had them, like, that whole period of having different coaches, but seeing the similarities in what they look for as players. You take them out of it, and the consistent thing is the fundamentals, for sure.
And so you've had, just naming those few there's some of the best coaches that are going around in local league at the moment, and also Adrian Center in the women's league. That period, so obviously we spoke about how the club is a big culture shock in that sense, but with the coaching sense and your playing ability, how did that feel? Did you feel like you went to another level?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, trainings were game-like. When you say game-like intensity, I mean like game-like intensity. There was no other option. You would, if you took that extra second, you're getting a double foot from the side from your best mate, or if you make the wrong pass. Your players will let you know about it or whatnot. So it was like, wow, this is like what it should feel like to be an elite footballer.
How many nights a week do you train? Adelaide United
Youth team. It was in the morning, so it was actually 7 o'clock in the morning at Modbury. I live in Glenelg, so it was an hour trip. So getting there, have to wake up at 5:30. Quickly get my stuff ready, go over the Modbury, train, and that was like 4 or 5 times a week.
Yep.
And then I'd get to school about recess time, and it was more. So I was still missing school. Even when I did make the move, I was still missing school. So I had to make up those hours by studying as well late, and it was still a big commitment, even though I was in Adelaide. Yeah.
So this was for the NPL. You have to do it during school hours.
It was training at 7:30 in the morning. Did
they change that now?
I think they've changed it to nights in Playfield or something like that. But originally it was still 7:30 in the morning at Modbury, and I think it was designed for a reason. Like, it makes you be professional.
Yeah.
If you don't get your hours of sleep, you're going to train bad the next morning.
We're now looking at it. I think if it's at night time. But do you think it should still be in the mornings, or?
It definitely made it feel more like it's your job, like professional wise, because you got to get your sleep. You got to wake up early to have a decent breakfast, so you're not training bad. It sort of kept you in check. But realistically, with the amount of players that do end up making it, is not a lot. So everyone needs to keep on top of their schooling, even those that are destined to make it. So hence it's probably better to train at night for that reason, that people can still 100% focus on their studies, and that's soccer's more of a hobby rather than your go-to career type thing.
A lot of people have different experiences going to Adelaide United, because if you don't get picked up for a couple of years, there's a whole new bunch of kids coming through that they're trying to get ready to get into the A League. How did that transition towards the end of your time there at Adelaide United? How did that feel for yourself personally?
Well, it's part of football. I still absolutely loved I think I spent 3 years there, and it was absolutely amazing. It was the best thing I've ever done in terms of for my own personal and player development. But towards the end, you're turning, I think I was, about to turn 19, and I was looking up, and, at the time, the midfielders, I was a midfielder, it was Lewis Dorigo, Ryan Yates, Lockie Brook, and I'm like, geez, that midfield's going to be tough to crack. And I'm also getting to that stage where it's like I need to start playing regular NPL football. So, I was looking at it and, struggling to really crack that midfield, and rightfully so. They're all amazing footballers. I thought it was best for me to make a move, and at the time my school soccer coach was Sam Carmichael at South Adelaide, and he was like, why don't you just come play the last end of the season with me at South Adelaide and get some NPL experience. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So told Adrian Stenter the next weekend that it was going to make the move, and he was upset, but he understood. Stenter was always that coach that had your best interests at heart, no matter whether or not it was at Adelaide United or somewhere else. So he understood that I need to go get that experience, and made the move the next weekend. I played Campbelltown in my first NPL match.
Wow.
Yes. It was a 4-4 absolute goal fest, and it was muddy. It was right at that point South Adelaide's pitch was getting done up. And I was like, okay, this is NPL football. This feels good. It was good.
Now the transition, because obviously you were at Northern Demons, which were in State League 2, went up to NPL with Adelaide United, and now you've gone to another NPL club, an actual football club environment. How did you start performing afterwards?
It was like a massive weight lifted off my shoulders, really. And I don't know why, because like I said, I absolutely loved that Adelaide United, and it wasn't until I now look back and I was like, it's because I've grown up playing for club football.
Was there what do you reckon there's a bit of pressure as well? Not like intentionally, but just that environment, because everyone's fighting to get into the A-League. Did that pressure, you could feel that?
And it has to be like that. You know? That's how the best players become who they are. You have to be in those environments where you're pushed, and the pressure is like that. Every training you have to perform. So it wasn't a bad thing necessarily. It was quite a good thing for my development. But yeah, it does. It can, take its toll on you, and if you don't continue to have that confidence, I think it was more within myself. When you don't play anywhere, you're gonna lose some confidence.
Yeah.
So just going back and being like, okay, you're the main midfielder in this team, even at 18, 19 years old, with Sam Carmichael and Thurston at the time, who was a visa player, was unbelievable. And I was like, okay, this is wicked. Like, I'm playing week in, week out, 90 minutes. And just that sense of like, okay, you're our guy. It helps big time, yeah.
What was some of your favourite moments at South Adelaide when you moved there?
Staying up that first year was awesome. It was a bit of a grind. Like, we were grinding out points towards the end against Bacala and that point in my first game against Campbelltown. I think that's still one of the best games I had at South Adelaide in terms of like the enjoyment. Like, It was just massive. Campbelltown were top of the league. I was coming up against Alex Mullen for the first time, a person that I knew from when I was young, in terms of we were sort of family friends. My dad knows his dad, and so looking up to him always, and then all of a sudden I'm on him and playing on him, and it was cool. So, and to also get the point, and ended up being probably the point that saved us. Those last 9 games, it was a pretty cool experience, yeah.
And then from there, did you see yourself staying at the club for a while, or was that just a stepping stone for future?
Again, because I've grown up, I sort of entrench myself within a club wherever I go.
Yeah.
So I made good friends. I made, some very good lifelong friends there, and Michael Good and Robbie Parker and whatnot. But it did feel like there was probably something else at that time. The club's probably changed a lot now, but the next year we started having. I was there for like the first 9 games, and we hadn't won one, and I was one that wants to continue to play NPL football, and I sort of saw the writing was on the wall for most of the club. Liam Wooding, we had just left, a player I looked up to massively, and was a role model for me. So, seeing the writing on the wall, I was like, okay, but I was still like happy to stay and try and fight out the rest of the year until Con at Comets called me and said, "This is this opportunity here if you want it." And even then, it was such a tough decision. I didn't want to feel like I was abandoning my mates, the club that gave me the original opportunity. But speaking to my dad, from a football sense, it was a no-brainer, considering South Adelaide did go on to get relegated that year, and I was a young player that still had that dream of playing A-League, so you have to play NPL football.
Yep.
I played against Comets. I knew they were a good club, and I knew Con was a great coach, and I knew it would be a good destination, and it was the right call. We won 2 league titles and went to 4 grannies, but unfortunately haven't been able to pick one of them up, but we'll keep working towards that. But yeah, and from a football decision, it should have been a clear-cut decision. But like I said, it was still tough. Yeah.
So when you moved there, how'd you initially find the change? Was it a lot easier than the other changes?
Yeah. And because you're moving from an NPL club to an NPL club. Only thing probably that I initially realised was, again, maybe the training environment was a little bit tougher. But that's just me being picky. We had a young squad full of all my mates from school as well at South Adelaide. So going to that Comets team at the time, there wasn't many young players in it. So it was like you're brushing shoulders with Alan Welsh, Adam LeCornu, Andreas Wines, Jack Bladden, all these big players in NPL football for a long time. And that was throughout the whole squad. We had this Spanish footballer, John Otonage. He played La Liga. So walking into that team, Nathan Antigento, like one of the best players in the NPL. He's played 300 plus games. It was crazy. You're in a team full of senior NPL footballers. Was like, okay, this is again probably a little bit of a step up. Yeah. And
how did you find your football performance when you were in that environment? Now, did it take another step forward?
It was actually probably a seamless transition, and that was probably because of, one, the boys were really nice, and when you're playing with those type of footballs around you, your job's naturally a little bit easier. And also, Con at the time, I don't know why, but he had something for me, and the boys know that. He really made sure he supported me and helped me flourish. Like it was never my fault at training if something broke down or a defensive assignment wasn't made, and someone ran through the midfield. It was always one of the older boys' fault, which they got a bit shitty with at times. But I think he knew he had to, he could probably go harder on those senior boys at the time and help me out. And yeah, it was massive. Yeah.
And then when Barney Smith came in, he took you guys to a few grand finals as well. Unfortunately, couldn't get the job done in those either. It's something the club has struggled with. But how do you find it when a new coach comes in? How do you find that transition with
Well,
them?
I knew Barney as a coach and his pedigree, but you don't know when a new coach comes in until you train with them in terms of what they think of you. So at the time I was a bit worried because I kind of treated me so well, that all of a sudden he's moving into a different role and a new coach was coming in. But it ended up again being a seamless transition. Barney was again probably one of the best coaches I've had in terms of you look at all the coaches I've had, I put him right up there with all of them, if not the best. Well,
it's amazing because now you look at it and he played an instrumental role in the challenges you've later had this year with your diagnosis. So it's amazing where it's gone with that. Sometimes you look at coaches and you just think they're just your coach, but it ends up being a lot more than just that, isn't it?
When you say it like that, it's almost like it was meant to be. The right people were meant to be in my life at the right time, the right coaching, Barney was amazing supporter through my playing development. It was massive, but then obviously having to go through what I did this year and having your coach by your bedside for majority of it and messaging you and telling you it's the team's going to be there for when you get back and sort of putting everything at ease was amazing.
Absolutely, mate. And I want to talk more in depth in that because it's an incredible story of from where it started to where you are now. So I think it's inspiring, and I think a lot of players need to hear this story, and the community need to hear it as well. But we'll talk about that in part 2 because part 1 has just had so much to talk about. I love the driving. You had to do, your family had to do a lot, and the dedication from your family also has gone into what you had to deal with this year as well. It's amazing how a strong family connection can to help people get through anything.
100%. It was just spot on. I can't really add too much to that. It was massive.
Looking forward to part 2 with Jayden LoBasso. We're going to talk all about his journey through dealing with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which was a tough journey as well, and that's all to come in part 2. And here's a quick sneak peek.
I was actually at uni and my hands and my feet started going numb, and went to training that day. And normally I like to get into the gym a little bit beforehand and do some extras. Even though my hands and feet were starting to feel a little bit numb and I was a bit worried, I still was adamant I would do my gym session and complete training. Barney and Dimmy Panner were there early because it was about 5 o'clock, training doesn't start till 6. And they're like, is everything all right? Well, you normally come in a bit more excited, a bit happy. I was like, I'm not feeling too well.
And how long was it after that you found out it was Guillain-Barré and you could rule out MS? Because that would have been a bit of a shock, obviously, having that on the cards.
So straight away, once I went in the next time, they started doing all the scans for MS and on my heart because I had a lot of back pain and stuff like that. So apparently the heart, if you have heart problems, it can not only go through your front of your chest and whatnot, can go through your back.
Super proud of what he's done, and for him to be back now, still in our squad, able to play in the final series. Well, I talked to him by his bedside when he couldn't get out of bed physically. He just physically couldn't get out of bed, and I remember saying to him, just believe, Jayden, and work hard and just dream about being back on that field, and who knows, you could be playing in the finals with us, and here he is playing in the finals with us. So all credit to him. He's done an amazing rehab to get where he is.
Barney was huge. He was like, just keep believing, you're gonna be there with us. And looking back, I don't know how he was so confident in that because he saw where I was at. And But he gave that belief to me, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have got it done.
Make sure you keep a lookout for part 2, where we talk all about his journey in recovery after being diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome. That's part 1 with Jayden LoBasso. Make sure you subscribe to Kicking It Local wherever you get your podcasts so you can get a taste of the SA football community. Plus, follow @KickingItLocal SA on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss any of the action. See you soon!